Predicting the future isn't magic, it's artificial intelligence. A very warm, cheerful, and enthusiastic good morning to one and all present here. Saturday 10 a.m. is back with the most prominent topic of 21st century, that is AI ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning. Myself, Naman Nagar from MBA Tech Computer Engineering second year.
And myself, Jency Aya from MBA Tech Computer Engineering second year would be your host today. I feel delighted to introduce the guest speaker, Ms Purvanshi Mehta. She had completed her graduation and post-graduation from the well-known universities like Thapar and University of Rochester. So let's hear it from Ms Purvanshi Mehta. She is working as an applied scientist in Microsoft, and all of us have our Microsoft as our dream job, right? So let's hear it from Ms Purvanshi Mehta about her experience and the AI, the future technology. So, ma'am, how are you doing today?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining the call. I'm doing very good, thank you. How are you, Jency and Naman?
Very nice, ma'am. Very fine.
Yeah, good too, thank you.
So, ma'am, to start with, can you please explain the audience in brief about what is exactly AI and ML means?
Right, so AI or artificial intelligence is basically trying to kind of mimic or in a way make computers learn the tasks that humans can do trivially, which is vision, let's say language or speech. And machine learning is a subfield or is a way to do AI or to solve AI or in the direction of solving AI. So it's a tool in which we don't explicitly say our computers what do they have to learn, but we build certain algorithms which learn what problem we are trying to solve.
Okay. And, ma'am, if we talk about research, then how does one get into research about AI and ML?
Right. So I think most of the crowd here is undergrad. So like one of the easiest thing that people could do here is work with a professor in their own universities, do some research internships, or take like an industry research oriented role, just to get an idea if that works for them or not.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, can you please explain how does artificial intelligence and deep learning are interrelated, or what is there any difference? What is exactly that things mean?
So, deep learning is another subfield of machine learning where we do things with the help of a neural network. And it's another way to solve AI or to do AI. So yeah, it's like AI is like the ultimate goal, or it's a field, and there are several ways which we can do it, and one of them is through deep learning.
Okay. And, ma'am, what exactly is the natural learning process and like what are its applications?
So did you say natural language processes or natural learning?
Natural learning process.
Okay, so natural learning process is more like how humans learn. Like we are not explicitly taught how to make sentences. We learn them on their own. So this is the best example of a natural learning process. If we talk about machine learning, then reinforcement learning is a complete field where we try to learn with certain rewards. So yeah, hope that makes things clear.
Ma'am, can you please little bit more elaborate about natural learning process? Any device that has been or any instrument that has been formed with NLP process so that we can get more clear idea regarding that?
Right. So natural learning process and natural language processing are two different things. Natural language processing is basically trying to process the language in the form, in any particular form, which is most commonly the human form, the way we speak or the way our tonality or what we are speaking about, and forming a whole sort of conversation. And where are its applications are, let's say, customer care. If we call like a company and there's like an automated voice speaking to you, they are understanding what you are talking about, then they are replying, or a chatbot. So these are kind of very direct applications. There are many subtle applications like your phone screen. So when you're typing, it can usually predict the next word you'll type. So that is also a good example of natural language processing. Another thing could be so these days there's a lot of natural language generation. So many bigger models are being used for story generation, poetry generation, or even replying to people in the form of emails. If you see Google, it gives you certain suggestions these days of what to reply, and then you can auto complete it. That is also a good application of NLP.
Okay. And ma'am, while going through your profile, we came across such terms like applied scientist and graph intelligent sciences. So can you elaborate on these terms?
Right. So I am currently working as an applied scientist in Microsoft. What my job entails is I have to know about what research is happening in the field, and we try to apply those algorithms or those models on internal data. And maybe if we find something novel, we can publish it outside on in like conferences or journals. So that is what like an applied scientist, at least in my role at Microsoft, it does. It's sometimes also very company and team dependent. So if you guys or any one of you is applying, you should always ask what the profile is and what does that entail. Um, and I'm an applied scientist in the Graph Intelligence Sciences team. So this is my team name within Microsoft. What we do is we deal with a lot of graph data, Microsoft's internal graph data. And yeah, we do a lot of predictions over it. I can't speak more because this is being live streamed. So yeah, but that's pretty much the basic idea.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, as you are the part of Graph Intelligence Science at Microsoft, so you can tell us how Graph act as a powerful tool in science and how they help in investigating various topics in the field.
Right. So graphs are they are pretty old in terms of graph theory has been going on since decades, and they're pretty new in the neural networks era where we have a lot of connected data. So if we see everything around is a graph, right? Like all the social media that we use, it's like a huge graph network. All the interaction that you're doing with let's say Zoom meetings, then that is like a whole graph data, because you might be attending a meeting with someone else and they're attending the same meeting, and they're also attending other meetings. So you can think of it like as a huge network graph being formed. Other kinds of graphs are naturally occurring graphs, which is, let's say, the graphs in chemistry or biology, like protein data, or in chemistry, like the structure of atoms and not atoms, but like the structure of substances. Um, Other naturally occurring graphs. So in NLP, we have knowledge graphs, which is basically two entities. Let's say a person is connected to his car and the relation is possession. So we can think like this, like a huge network graph of entities and relations. So coming back to your question about why is it important, because graphs are everywhere and it's a pretty new field in terms of neural networks. It's not widely applied. There are a lot of open questions and open problems which probably you all can work on too.
Yeah. Ma'am, you worked as a data scientist, and many people mix up the concepts of data science and data analysis. So, can you elaborate the difference between them?
Right. So data analysis, it depends on the team and the company. Firstly, how do they distinguish? In my experience and opinion, data analysis is more of an applied field where you have the company usually has certain tools and you're trying to analyze some data and report it to usually the data scientist. This is how it worked in my previous team. We had a partner data analysis team. They usually brought us the numbers and we used to think about what models we can use or what conclusions or observations can we draw to improve our conclusions.
Ma'am, can you please elaborate more on applied fields that you talked about right now? That is a part of applied field. So, what more things come under that?
So applied field usually what it means is you're applying what research is there outside, right? So anything can be applied, especially in the era of deep learning. Like NLP is an applied field. If you work more on the engineering side, on the modeling side, on basically anything on which you work with real data on, could be classified as an applied field.
Okay. Ma'am, what are some of the technologies we as a student should look forward which might change the status of the current learnings?
So I think it's not about the technology, it's more about getting your basics strong. So people in computer science feel it's more about like how well do you study algorithms and data structures, because that is literally the base of everything. Then how good you are at problem solving in general. It doesn't make a difference if you learn in, let's say, Python or C or Java, but there should be one programming language which you should have a good grasp upon, and that could also help in the interview process.
Ma'am, can you please tell how a fresher or an AI/ML enthusiastic enter the domain and what skills should they acquire in order to excel in that domain?
Right. So I think as a fresher, like, so if someone is from first year, the first task would be to learn the basics, which is again like algorithms and data science, and so do some basic programming in Python, maybe build something. And the second stage would be, okay, so they want to move into data analysis and data science, and then maybe machine learning. So that would be a next step. And what should they do? I think do more and more projects, either at the university or as internships or working part time. Yeah.
Okay. So, ma'am, you talked about projects, and suppose we are building projects and putting it up on our CV. So, can you tell our audience the importance of internships and how can one get internships in the domain of AI/ML?
Right. So internships are like, I think we all know here with whoever is on the call, they are very important because you can learn a lot. You can apply what you have learned in school to a project. They add to your CV or resume. Um, and yeah, they are important. Like, do as many internships as you want in these years. So, and how do you get it is if you can't get a machine learning internship directly, it's okay to start with a software engineering internship. I think experience as a software engineer is extremely important, even if you eventually want to work in machine learning. So, I mean, do whatever internship you can get and utilize your summers, winters, maybe also working part time during the semesters.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, can you please tell us the detailed roadmap for a person who wishes to enter in the domain and create a successful career? Then, for example, what courses he want to opt, what are the online good resources available, and all the good projects that he can do, some project ideas.
Um, Right. So for the first part, like a roadmap, I think that's extremely personal to a person's journey. So there's no like one roadmap for everyone. But of course, if I had to say something, it would be take the basic courses. Again, emphasizing on that. Other than that, what courses? In my undergrad, we had or some optimization courses. There was some discrete math. I'm sure you guys would have it too. If you take a lot of math courses, that usually helps in in-depth knowledge of the field. Um, we had convex optimization and numeric theory as one of our courses. So that kind of helped. You might have like similar courses, so you should look into that. Um, Other than that, there are core computer science courses which you could take. Um, like OS is pretty important, networking is pretty important, although they don't directly apply, but they help in interviews and they help. I feel like you should have basic knowledge of what you're working with to proceed in the field. Sorry, what was your full question? There were like parts to it. Could you repeat the next part again?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the next part is the good online resources that we can get to complete these courses.
Right. I think there are so many courses. Whatever course you take it diligently. Like it's not about completing n number of courses. It's more about how much do you get from that course. There are some standard Stanford courses, N2NG's course, which probably most people start with. So that's a pretty good starter course. There are specific NLP and computer vision courses too. So my one suggestion would be take as many courses that you want, and then get good grasp on one of these fields. Let's say NLP. If you think that's the most interesting to you, then you should have a very good grasp on the theory, the practical side, implementation side on that field. I think
Ma'am,
you're
to
on mute.
continue with the, I'm audible.
Yeah.
Ma'am, to continue with the same question, how to check that courses are ready for industry and the demand in industry, as we are changing that demand change every day in the industry purpose.
Right. So I think computer science, it's such a fast progressing field. We have to keep learning. Like even if you join the industry, we have to be relevant in terms of our knowledge. So if you start from the basic, then you would come at a point where you kind of understand that, okay, I need to relearn again. I need to read papers again because I'm not updated. There are many newsletters which one could follow for machine learning and AI specifically. Like there's one inside AI. There's another one, the sequence. So these are the two which I follow. You guys could subscribe to it or something, and they give you updated knowledge of what happened last week in the field. So that's pretty up to date.
Okay. Ma'am, you mentioned about the courses, like we can take up n number of courses and learn as much as we can. But when it comes to time management, so it sometimes it happens that completing our undergrad and taking those courses simultaneously. So, how did you manage your time in your college?
I feel like undergrad we have a lot of time as compared to grad school. It's about uh, I think it's about managing your time. Also, we have to be like in a lot of extracurricular activities, and as you guys are organizing this obviously takes up a lot of time. But we have to at one point get our priorities right, I guess, and whatever is important for you in a long term and a short term. So yeah, I don't have a very good golden answer or solution to this.
Can you please suggest some platforms from which we can get into the field of AIML?
I think pretty standard like Coursera, Udemy, like the whole Andrew Ng's course is also on YouTube. Even NLP course by Stanford is on YouTube. So I think even like you don't essentially have to pay for some courses. You can also take the free ones which are out there.
Okay. Ma'am, what are we taught in our undergrad and what the industry expects are like far more different sometimes. So, how does one transition from a student's mindset to that of a professional worker?
I think again, internships help a lot if you're doing industrial internships. One thing is you could also take side projects like, okay, I build XYZ thing in like this week. So these kind of things makes you very close to what is happening in the industry. Like let's say you build a website or you build like a SaaS platform, or you take some data set and you do a Kaggle competition. That's like you sit for a weekend, do a Kaggle competition, so you would know what is happening in the competitive data science field. So there are various ways to kind of keep yourself involved with what is happening, and that would eventually contribute to your resume too.
Ma'am, can you please give us some more tips to build up the resume that the industry wants other than the academics performance?
Right. In terms of you, Do you mean like the format for the resume, or like what to include in the resume? Oh, both. Okay, I can say both. So, in terms of what to include, I think the more number of projects that you have, and they should be like you should have worked on it. Like, I'm not saying you should uh, just write something on your CV just for the sake of it, because in the interviews they would eventually find out, like, because they have passed through the same process and they take up a lot of interviews, so you would be busted. So don't add anything which you have not worked on. um this is what, like, people usually in their undergrad they write, okay, we know like 6 languages, and I think I at one point in my sophomore year I did the same thing. Like, I wrote Python, C, and Java on my resume at the same time. I would never do that now, because I know that writing N is more harmful if they ask me something in depth. And if I just write Python now, which I know, which I work with every day, and I know everything, not everything, but like I'm more confident about it, then it makes you more of an eligible candidate for the job position. um, Another thing is that you could add your website. If anyone here doesn't have a website, just make one. That is like super important. Everyone should have LinkedIn these days. And add all these links in your resume. Add GitHub link in your resume. Add the project links in your resume. Like, your website should have what project you worked on. Maybe it's open source. That's like a plus plus. You could add all those links there. Yeah, pretty much it. Sometimes people also add their references. So if you have a reference where you have worked before, or a professor that you're working with, you could also provide their email ID. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Ma'am, when you applied for Microsoft, so how many projects you had on your CV?
So I applied after my grad school. So the process is very different. So I can talk about if anyone is applying after undergrad school. I had experience too before applying for Microsoft, as I worked for Amazon. So those things were different. But if as a fresher is applying, I think again, like I would say, if someone has worked on a front end project, just add a link to what you have worked on. It does not depend on whether you're adding 10 projects or 2 projects. If your 2 projects are really, really good, like they're really good open source contributions, then those are relevant enough. So the number doesn't matter, but the quality matters a lot.
Ma'am, can you please tell us the selection process in the top companies like Amazon you have worked, Microsoft you have worked. So what exactly they are looking in a candidate, and what is the process for selection?
I think so. Again, I work in a research field whose process for selection is very different from someone who's working as a software engineer. But if you're talking about the research field, the different jobs that I've gotten in my past were through the similar kind of work I was doing. So let's say at Amazon, I was already working, or I had some experience in natural language processing, and then I went into the Alexa's natural language understanding team. So they look for a similar background, and then they check on whether you're qualified or enough, or like the basics of the field or not.
Okay. Ma'am, you have so much experience in the field of AI, and do you have any suggestions regarding like how we can become more relevant in the era of AI?
Right. I think being updated in the field is pretty important. Like, you should know if you're working in it, or if you plan to work in it. The field is advancing so fast that if you take 3 courses, everyone takes 3 courses. So you can't expect much from taking 3 courses. You have to show your work, and you have to be updated in terms of what is happening, what model has come out, how is it that performing, and you have to show that you are updated in a way. So you have to kind of either write about it, or make a project out of it, or in some way or the other.
Ma'am, can you please tell us something regarding the work environment at Microsoft and what make Microsoft different from the other companies?
I think I like Microsoft because of its, I mean, because of work and everything else. But I feel like good work can be found almost in any company if you are the right team and everything. But um, the diversity initiatives are really good, and people really respect each other. They really want you to succeed. They really care about your own career. Um, so yeah, that those things are really important to me.
Yeah, ma'am, can you elaborate more on your current projects which you are working on at Microsoft and what is the atmosphere like? How does a team work at Microsoft and what is your role basically?
Right, I can talk in an abstract sense. So, as I mentioned, I'm in the Graph Intelligence Sciences team, so which handles a lot of internal and external graph data. My role is applying the graph neural network models on that internal data. Some of the problems that I work with is scalability of graph neural networks. So dealing with heterogeneous nodes in a graph, which is if you have a graph which has, let's say, documents or which has, like some IP addresses or something like that, how do you combine information from all these different sources into something useful? Talking about my team, we form subgroups within our team. So we have a subgroup of 3 to 4 people who work on a very specific topic, even in graph learning. But yeah, so that is how we work. We read research papers every Friday, like this, like a group reading session. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much about it. I can answer anything specific.
Ma'am, we heard you are working on a Recompile, which is a platform for effective digital learning. Could you talk more about it?
Sure, yeah. So these days, as like we are talking about learning, right? Like where do we learn from, what do we learn from, and how do we share what we have learned? So even after leaving school or university, we keep on learning new topics, and there's currently no good way to document that. So Recompile would be a platform where you can share your learning journey. Let's say if someone is getting into AI ML, so but like I have, when I got into AI ML, I could document all the resources that I went through, and then anyone can have a look at it. And at the back end, we automatically form a knowledge graph out of everyone's learning journey. So we organize whatever I have learned into something structured based on the concepts that people are learning from.
Okay. Ma'am, what motivated you to go to foreign country and what was your goal and have you achieved it?
I so I think it was more about the experience of living with different cultures and different people. Have I achieved it? Have I lived in a different country? Yes. Yeah, I think that's pretty much my answer.
Ma'am, nowadays people are thinking that AI is becoming danger and threat. So what is your opinion on that?
I think so. Every company has their own ethics team, which probably needs to be stronger for every company. And I think there are a lot of legal laws being formed around this area. Like, let's talk about searching faces from an app. So there are some laws which have come into place, at least in the US, and they would soon be everywhere, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I don't think currently we are at a stage where it is harmful directly to to the humans in terms of safety, but obviously there are ways where this technology could be misused, like fake news generation and everything that we hear about.
Okay, ma'am, what would you suggest for the security?
For the security of AI.
Yeah, like the security of our profile, like using if we are using AI, then how we can secure ourselves from cybercrime.
Oh, from cybercrime. Okay. Yeah, this is a good question. I think be very cautious about what apps you're sharing your data with. That's the very basic. iPhone is better than Android in some cases because it asks you every time, do you want to share the data or not? Like there are many apps which take all your photos, which have access to all your photos. So everyone should be pretty careful about it. If you're too insecure about Instagram profiles, keep everything as closed. That's another way, even Facebook. Uh, but yeah, if you Google your name, if you see some pictures coming up, you can actually request Google to put off those pictures. So I recently came to know about this. So yeah, I think these are the ones that I know.
Ma'am, can you please elaborate on what is game theory and how it is important in AI?
I actually don't have any background in it. Sorry. So I don't think I'm like an expert in this area.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, no problem. Ma'am, can you explain about the assessment that is used to test the intelligence of a machine?
Uh, I mean, there is something as Turing test, but that is more, abstract. Intelligence of a machine, it depends on what application you are testing on. So if let's say if you're building a chatbot, then there are certain metrics which are mathematically quantifiable, which could be used to um, determine how efficient your chatbot model is. If you're doing speech recognition, then there are certain metrics which help you identify how good your model is. So it depends on what aspect of intelligence you are trying to measure.
Ma'am, can you please tell us how AI affect the application development process?
So I think AI is a tool. Again, first we need to have the data with the application. So if it's like a whole pipeline, then AI is a very small part of how decisions are being made. You could have AI, either like an AI centric application or an application which is already there and we are trying to improve it through AI. So there could be two ways to approach this problem. Now, if you talk about AI centric applications, then you ask for examples, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so a good example would be like a chatbot, which is if it's automated, then I mean, there could be hard coded chatbots too, but if it's like an end to end system, then it's more like an AI application, AI centric application. So, yeah.
Just a minute, ma'am. Anyone from the audience, if you have any questions regarding the field, then you can put it on the chat box.
Ma'am, how can we coexist with machine that human that how that inherently lack human values?
uh, Inherently lack human values. I mean, we could, we are actually coexisting with such machines, right? Like uh, on your phone, every time if you're writing an email, like a system is predicting what you'll write next or what should be an optimal reply. So that is a machine which has some sort of intelligence, and it doesn't have human intelligence or human emotional intelligence, and we are coexisting. So I think this could be the case in the future too.
Ma'am, we have got one question in the chat box. As you are aware of a lot of technology, so how do you retain all of this information and knowledge?
I take notes, so I keep a diary every time with me. On my phone, I write down ideas that I have or something that I am using, or if I read it somewhere, I write it down. So if you guys have an iPad or even phone or anything, just write things down and revisit them once in a while. That's, I think, the best way.
Ma'am, we are having one more question from our audience that how can CSIT students can opt to the AI field and go into the AI field?
I think the easiest way would be, taking the data analysis route. Like once you start some project with data analysis, if they're still in school, then start some project on data analysis, and then eventually, if they get a hold of the field, move more into the modeling side. Take some online courses, do a bit of projects. Kaggle competitions are amazing for data scientists. um yeah, and like reach out to people on LinkedIn, to ask them, okay, so if you got an internship on XYZ, how did you get it, how were the how did the interviews go, did you have a referral, so you'll have an idea of where do you want to get at eventually.
Ma'am, other than AI, what are the prominent fields in which we can go, which have the very good future? As one is AI ML, you told us. Other than this field, what are the fields?
I mean, you could have a great future as a software engineer too, right? So that's also an amazing field. Within software engineering, people work on different aspects of things. Like some work on like development side or front end or back end, or some on networking, load balancing side. Some people eventually move to infrastructure related problems.
We have one more question from the audience. Algorithms. This is what we heard many a times, whether it be Instagram algorithm. So, what is the role of algorithm in AI?
So algorithm in AI. So algorithm could be for anything. It could be for AI. It could be for any other process, or any other field. So algorithms are not specific to AI, or to networking, or to data structures. It could be anything.
Ma'am, we have one more question from the audience that what are the projects, AI projects that can students do? So, ma'am, can you please give some examples over it?
Sure, yeah. So, one thing could be Kaggle competitions. We start from there. Another thing could be like these very small projects, like of computer vision. Like Udemy course has a computer vision project where you have to do an object recognition. Maybe that would be a good start. And eventually, when you're trying to learn this field, you could come up with something of your own, like you build an application on on your phone which does any kind of computer vision, like object detection, segmentation. Then you could build like a multimodal model from it, which also understands language, takes language speech into account, and gives some sort of prediction. So you can be innovative about it. The one goal should be building something from end to end, from the machine learning part to building something on phone, web app, or anything. Even on Recompile, we are also looking for developers. So if anyone is interested, feel free to ping me after this or anytime on LinkedIn, and we can chat more about it.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, we have one more question. Many people say AI is a better course in MTech. So, is it okay to do AI ML course in BTech? Would BTech students get decent jobs?
Uh, It is a bit difficult, but if you have a good background, then it is definitely possible with just an undergrad degree.
Ma'am, what is the most popular programming language that is used in the field of artificial intelligence? And so that as at our level we can start working over it to have a grasp over it.
Right. It is Python. So Python is mostly used, and for machine learning, I think specifically for deep learning, PyTorch or Keras, TensorFlow, all these are used.
Some people say that Python have a huge library, so some company don't accept Python. So is it same in the case of AI also, that we should also have one more language other than Python to have a command?
I don't think so. In my opinion, I have never been asked for any other language, but I think the one basic course of data structures and algorithms, at least at my time in undergrad, we used to have it in C, which gives you a low level understanding of what is happening with things, and not you're just not directly jumping to using data structures in Python. But if you have a basic knowledge of C, then you can go on with Python.
Ma'am, can you tell us about your journey in detail? Like, when did you start programming, and then to the research, and finally to the Microsoft? So, how did it go?
Right. So I started my undergrad in 2014. I did my first internship um, in in Triple IT Hyderabad. It was on arithmetic word problem solving. So you have questions of maths, but in the form of natural language. Let's say A has two apples, B gives A two more apples. How many apples does A have now? So we have to understand the language, perform mathematical reasoning over it, and give the answer. So I worked on these kind of problems in during that internship. Previous to that, I had also worked on I think sentiment analysis in Dhirubhai Ambani College. This was also an internship. Then I moved to Germany during my undergrad to do a bachelor thesis. So my undergrad thesis was on multimodal learning, which is how do we how do we understand different data types and form a combined prediction over it. I also worked briefly in Sweden when I was back in Europe. That was on gender detection from language. And then I finally moved to the US to do my master's in data science. So I did an internship at Amazon, Alexa AI during that time. And yeah, finally I joined Microsoft.
Ma'am, can you please tell us regarding the same more about sentimental analysis that you have talked right now?
Right. So that was, I think, in 2015. So sentiment analysis was very different at that time than it is now. So I worked on how do we extract certain words from the sentence which correspond to that sentiment. So basically, like a multi-label classification problem. And at that time, people were mostly working on if it's good or bad sentence. Or and we kind of tried to give more sentiments in terms of a sentence could be good and bad, but one word could attribute to the good quality and another word to the bad quality. So this is what I worked on.
Yeah,
Ma'am, can you
ma'am.
please tell us about the experience that you gained during working on the Alexa project, because Alexa is very popular among us all.
Mhm. Yeah, right. So I was working on more of the natural language understanding research team, and at that time I worked on how can we empower Alexa to do question answering over facts. So we were using a huge knowledge graph to enable Alexa to answer questions like when was Barack Obama elected, or factual questions, similar factual questions.
Okay. Ma'am, people say AI will take away the jobs of humans. So, how much of this is true according to you?
Uh, I think it depends on the field. This is like a very open-ended question. So if we talk about like our field, I think like development and engineering field, these are pretty creative job roles. And if your job role is not creative, then maybe you should rethink about acquiring more skills and going in a more creative job roles, because in the future the only jobs that would like exist would be the creative roles, be it in any field.
Ma'am, according to many researchers, AI is building AI. So what is your thought on this? Is it true?
So there's a field in AI called auto ML, right, where we basically search for the best model architecture to solve the problem. So in a way, it is, if you can call it, it is AI building AI. Like you can give it any fancy, catchy name, but essentially, it's trying to search for the best model um, within your search space to solve a problem.
I think we have covered all the questions from the chat box. So, ma'am, one last question from my side. So, what is the one last piece of advice you want to give to our audience?
I think, yeah, just if I'm in a position to give any advice, it would be, like keep learning and working on new projects. Like at least AIML is very exciting field, new things happening every day. So you could actually literally learn something new every day. Um, and yeah, just have fun with it.
Yeah, ma'am, I personally learned a lot from this session that what is deep analysis, sentimental analysis, and many more things. It was really a wonderful and informative session. We are elated and very grateful to have this interaction with you. We got a very clear idea of AIML on behalf of our entire Saturday 10 a.m. team and student community. Would like to thank Ms. Purvanshi Mehta for sparing her valuable time and interacting with our students.
Yeah, agreed, Naman. I also learned a lot about the IML and the internships that ma'am did and what should we put on the CV, and that was so motivating, like moving to so many countries and all. So, like all thanks to ma'am for the for our valuable insights, and we would like to extend our gratitude to our director, sir, Mr. Akshay Malhotra, faculty mentors, Dr. Smita Bonde, and Ashok Kotwal, sir, for their constant support and guidance. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the attendees here to be a very nice audience. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming and giving a valuable time to us and
Of
enhancing our knowledge once again.
Yeah. If there's any other question, I'm always available on LinkedIn or my email. I can share with you guys and you can distribute it.
Yes, ma'am, you
So
can share.